Good morning, friends, and thank you for joining me on our second day of Vacation Bible School. Before we continue with today's lesson, I want us to quickly talk about what we learned yesterday with Reverend Hannah. Now, who remembers what we talked about yesterday? That's right. Yesterday we talked about the season of Advent, and we learned how it's a season for us to prepare our hearts and our minds and our space for the birth of Jesus, and how we slow down in order to prepare. And now, what do you think we might be talking about today? There might be some clues in this video. That's right, today we're gonna be talking about the season of Christmas, and we're gonna learn about the season of Epiphany. Now, before we get started, I wanna know, what are some of your favorite things about Christmas? Do you like getting to visit friends and family? Do you like getting presents? Do you like making presents and making cards for somebody else? Well, me too. I love all of those things, and Christmas is an exciting day, not only because of all of those things, but because of today's story and today's good news. And I'm gonna let you in on the little secret, and I'm gonna share the good news with you today. On this day, Jesus was born and brought into the world, and that is super exciting. And whenever we look at Christmas, we remember Mary and Joseph. And in today's story, Mary and Joseph were visited by the angel Gabriel, and Gabriel told Mary that she was gonna give birth to the Son of God. Now, this was some exciting and surprising news. And after getting the news, they traveled a long way to the town of Bethlehem. Once they made it to Bethlehem, they knocked on the doors of several inns, and inns are kind of like hotels, and they were turned away until they knocked on the door of one innkeeper, and they said, "Well, I don't have room in the inn, but I have a stable that you can stay in." And what do you know about stables? Stables can be pretty small, and they're usually filled with animals, and that's kind of a strange place to have humans stay. But Mary and Joseph knew that Jesus was coming soon, and they needed to find a space. So once they got settled in the stable, and a couple hours later, Mary gave birth to Jesus, and it was a beautiful thing. And this was such good news that angels were sent far and wide to share the good news. And there were shepherds that were visited by angels that were told to go and celebrate with Mary and Joseph and to see this beautiful new baby. So they traveled a far way and made their way to the stable and saw Jesus laying there in a manger. And now that brings us to the story of Epiphany. And sometime later, some wise men were out looking at the sky, and they were expecting a king. And while they were looking at the sky, they noticed a bright star, and they saw this as a sign that they needed to follow the star, and at the end of the star, they would see their king. So they traveled far and wide and made their way to Bethlehem and got to see Jesus. Now, looking back at the story, was there anything weird that kind of was surprising to you? A better question is, when we think of royalty, where do we usually think of somebody who's royal being born? Is it in a castle or a palace? Usually. But in today's story, Jesus, this King of Kings, had a pretty humble birth and had humble surroundings. And Jesus was surrounded by Mary and Joseph and the shepherds and these animals, And it's kind of an odd sight, but that's what makes this moment so beautiful. Jesus didn't need all of this fancy stuff. Jesus came into the world with a humble beginning. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about with today's craft. So today we are going to have in today's bag, we have our pine cone and a little wooden round and a star. And a star can represent the star that the wise men followed. And this whole craft looks pretty simple. And that's kind of the idea of it. I wanted us to look at this craft, and whenever we look at it, remember this humble birth of Jesus. And remember that while Advent is a season for us to prepare ourselves and prepare our space and our hearts and our minds, that this season of Christmas is a season for us to share the good news that Jesus was born and that God is with us in this moment. And once you're done with your decoration, you can put it on your Advent table. And whenever you look at it, you can remember that God is always with us in that moment. So in today's bag, you're going to find a pine cone, a little wood round, and a star. And today's task is super easy. And what you're going to do is you're going to get your hot glue gun, or you can use regular glue, but I'm using hot glue because I think it'll just stay better and help everything settle a little bit more. And you're going to get your glue and carefully put it on the bottom of your pine cone. You want to make sure that you kind of cover the base so it's nice and secure when you put it on the wood round. You get the wood round, and you're going to put it right there. And if your pine cone isn't staying as well, you can put some hot glue on it or around it, and that'll help it stay. And it'll dry, so it'll stay a little bit better. And then you're gonna get your star and put some hot glue on that and carefully put it on the side of the star. And then you're gonna put it on top of the pine cone. And some of the pine cones have little grooves on the top that make it easier for the star to stay. And then you are done. Ta-da! So feel free to, once it's dry and cool, put it on your preparation space. And whenever you think of it, you can think of the humble beginnings of Jesus and how we are called to share the good news of Jesus' birth into the world. Merry Christmas, everyone, and hope you have a great day.